Sweet land of liberty.
Yes, I like this new weapon.
Yes!
Sweet!
Hello, Crafting here, and let's get started to talk about the 10 favorite changes that we're going to be doing that was kind of decided upon myself and the staff of Custom Weapons. And I'm going to have timestamps in the description if you want to skip to a certain weapon that you're really curious about of hearing our point of view, the reason why we went that route with the changes. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please, I urge you to watch the video that came out with this. It pretty much explains everything. Now, on to the first weapon. Now, the first weapon is actually multiple weapons. I'm talking about heavy melee weapons. So basically, due to him being the slowest class and him being the biggest class, as in hitbox wise, he's not really a class that you just go around with melee. The closest you can do it with now with the current weapons is probably the Fist of Steel, but that's really the only weapon that's designed for that. So pretty much what we decided to do is all heavy melee weapons, we're adding a 37% melee range, which is equivalent of what the swords normally do, except minus the holster and deploy penalties. So just all weapons. Now, it could actually be a negative, you know, on a certain weapon that, like, we don't want that one to have melee range increase. That actually would become a negative on that. But basically, default melee, killing gloves, bear claws, you know, all of them. Now, let's talk about the next weapon, the Dalokohs Bar. Pretty much there's been 3 versions of this, and essentially what they did over time was increase the overall healing with it, allow you to, you know, eventually drop the health pack, drop as a health pack and overheal. That's kind of what it went from the first version to the most current version. And so basically we wanted to kind of spice things up. So basically it kind of follows the same idea. So instead, so we added the mechanic of, you know, if you throw it to a teammate and it extinguishes them if they're on fire, you also recover health, kind of similar to an air blast. Second thing is that on consumption, it adds 10 max permanent health. So if you didn't know, the current version, it does not stack. It's kind of like a hidden plus 50 health. It doesn't stack with a metagun. Now it will, up to 50. So it would take five times eating to do it. But to balance it out, we're kind of going to be using what the gas passer uses, was the whole recharge system, except it only charges with damage. So respawning and the resupply does not affect the meter, and the meter only charges up with damage dealt. And we're probably aiming around 750, kind of unsure, but that feels about right. Starts empty on spawn, obviously, and it's a minus 50% self health healing effect. Basically, it would heal for 150 if you would eat it. You can still share it with a friend, and when you die, you would lose your max health. So you can get up to 350 health, which is, I believe, 525 on a full overheal. We did a lot of love for heavy, I'll say. But this is one of them. We'll probably maybe add a particle effect to indicate that, you know, he currently has a little bit of extra health, because it might throw you off if you didn't know. But that's kind of our idea for the changes for the bar. Next is the Holiday Punch. Now, this has actually never got any actual changes. I can say yes to the thing related to MvM about punching robots and whatnot, but it has never had an actual change, because essentially you just rely on random crits or hitting someone in the back. But the thing is, for some time now, we've actually have random crits disabled, so it actually makes this completely useless. So basically, we added several things on this, basically. And while recording this video, I may be adding some new negatives, either a damage penalty or fire rate penalty. But just, we'll leave it as is, and I'll just have to probably add these negatives. So basically, new positive, which is, while the weapon's active, user is able to pick up their own edible for health. I had the idea of bringing back the old sandwich, which is, because used to, in the, you know, a couple of years back, you'd be able to throw your sandwich out and just pick it back up, but it would count as health. I kind of like that mechanic. So just as long as you have the weapon active, you can pick it up. You can kind of have a health pack exactly where you want it, and for yourself or for a medic or whatever. It will crit from behind. No change on that. A new positive. Third successful punch in a row will crit. So we're trying to add lots of mechanics that will trigger a crit to give you what it's meant to do. Another positive we added, which was it crits whenever it normally mini crits. So if you're under the fix of a buff banner or something like that, or you hit someone that's been jaw rated, you crit and make them laugh. Critical hits force them to laugh. Obviously, it still has that. On hit, if you hit someone also wearing it, both you and the person also laughs. No change. Don't forget about the extended melee range, and then currently the only negative of no random critical hits. Critical hits do not do no damage. Probably going to be adding a damage penalty or fire rate penalty, but just I'll leave it as is for now, and we'll see. So there's the new and much better usable holiday punch. So there's been 5 versions of this, which is crazy to think about it. So from the first to the 5th version, basically how they nerfed it down was, adding a damage penalty, reducing the duration of the crits, changing out the damage penalty to just, well, actually they buffed it when they added invulnerability and whatnot. That was like the worst thing. And then in the last version, basically they increased the fire damage required, and then made it where you don't refill your health anymore. And to be honest, it's in a good place, kind of. But there's still a problem with WM1, especially if you have a medic with me, which, while recording footage for this video, went to a pub randomly. I don't think they didn't know who I was. Just had a medic on me. I had some very colorful, in the chat that I looked at it afterwards, and so anyway, so this is our idea for the new Phlog. So it'll obviously have the direct reduced heal thing that was added that I forgot to include on the version 5. 300 damage dealt. Taunt for crits, no difference. Vulnerability. Now, so here's all the changes that we're changing. Is that you can now reflect, but reflected projectiles are turned into a small ammo pack. And part of the negative is that reflected projectiles are completely removed. So you can now reflect, but you don't reflect them back. You we want to give the feeling of this is like an energy weapon, basically, so you have kind of infinite ammo. But you can't air blast players, so you can't remove a fire from somebody or whatnot. So we basically we basically changed can't air blast to you can only do projectiles, but you can't reflect them back. That's the idea. But the biggest negative that we added is that direct damage up to 25% and afterburn damage up to 75%, which is essentially just 1 damage per tick for that one, are decreased when continuously fired. We're trying to figure out the system, so most likely we might say maybe 20 seconds of continuous burn, maybe 10 seconds for like the Phlog duration. But basically, 1 second of burn will take 2 seconds to recover, basically. So if it's 10 seconds, if you do the whole duration, it's going to take 20 seconds, but it's auto-updating. It's not like you have a damage penalty and then it just boop, pops back up to normal. It's always adjusting. So you kind of get the idea. So that's kind of part of the best route to go. I mean, regardless, even if you have a damage penalty of 25% with crits, it still hurts with flames. So keep that in mind. So anyway, I hope you like this little nerf to the Phlog, but buff in that one little area. Next is actually a new weapon, the Gas Passer. So if you didn't know, it takes 750 damage to fully charge the meter up without the natural recharge. That's a lot. And 60 seconds for it to naturally recharge. That's even... oh, God. That you might get it 4 times if you do no damage, like during like a King of the Hill round or something like that. And that's nothing for what the effect gives you. It really isn't. So basically what we decided to do was essentially cut those in half. So now it's only going to cost 375 damage to recharge with damage, or only 30 seconds to recharge over time naturally. But we added a new positive we thought about, which is 100% of the afterburn damage caused by this weapon returns to you as health, but you can't overheal from the effect. Which now makes it more interesting and more fun to use, because in its current state, it's like, yeah, you can ignite people, but you have weapons in every slot that does it already. You know, you can ignite. The only positive you get out of it is you can ignite other pyros. That's the only thing that's different about it, and it just needs additional a little bump and be like, yeah, it's totally usable. I'll definitely use that. So hopefully you like these changes. What? Another new weapon that was literally just added to the hot hand? Okay, strip it back. What is it? It's just a thing that you get a speed boost for 1 second, if you didn't know, and damage penalty. But it has the slap system in the kill feed. Woo! I mean, I know the uniqueness of the double hitting thing is kind of cool. But I felt like out of all the weapons they added, this is the laziest. I mean, I'm not bashing Valve, but there's nothing unique about it. So let's make it unique. I was like, so basically, there's now a new slap system. So basically, our idea is this. So on the same target, we'll get down to the negatives real quick. But basically, slap 1, you get a speed boost, but at 3 seconds. It's already better than the original, basically. Second slap on that person, you ignite them for 5 seconds. Third slap, it crit hits. Fourth slap, you knock them away. And the weapon itself naturally has that extended melee range. So here's the negative. So how the slap system works is that switching targets resets the combo slap meter or after 1 second. Basically, if you switch targets, it resets. If you after 1 second, essentially if you miss, it resets. Like you have to commit and hit perfectly. The afterburn itself is only 1 tick. It's kind of meant as a debuff or whatnot, or a warning that, you know, here's the crit hit up next, and as long as I don't miss, here's the knockback. The weapon itself is going to have a 30% damage penalty. Now, if you didn't know, there's an actual error on the card currently, on the official card. Even though it says minus 20%, it's actually 15%. It's actually less than you think. If you actually do the math. Yes, I am increasing it, but as long as you land that third slap, that crit hit, it makes it kind of have this nearly the same DPS as normal melee. Except now you have bonus range, a longer speed boost and whatnot. So this makes it more interesting, you know, and it kind of fits the idea. This you slap in his hand, boom, 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 knockback. So yeah. Yes, we have the technology. We'll make the Enforcer good again. So there's been too many versions of this thing. So yes, I can admit I was probably the spies that, you know, used the first and second version, or more the first version, because I did have horrible aim, and it kind of had no actual penalty if you use it with the dead ringer, which I think I did. I'm sorry, sue me. I'm fine to accept the second version with the firing speed and the undisguised, which makes sense. And probably when they add it where you can only be disguised and get the bonus, that's probably when the weapon was basically nerfed, and the whole attacks pierced thing is fine. But if you didn't know, like, a lot of it actually is broken. Like, it doesn't do all the effects that it's supposed to do, or at least penetrate. So our version, basically, it kind of follows that idea of like the impact damage type of thing. It's still situational, but it's, you know, it kind of follows what the first or second version was kind of doing. So basically, I was just going to increase the shot while disguised, but one of my admins, we came up with like, what if it's a guaranteed mini crit shot while disguised? That works, because I wanted to kind of get rid of the damage fall off like difference and whatnot. So also, by the way, so just kind of strip back, forget what the current version is. So mini crit shot, second, plus 20% damage versus debuff players, and a clip size penalty. Clip size penalty, no other revolver has that. Most of them have a freaking fire rate penalty or damage shot. Damage penalty. Ooh, how original. It's like this. It's like Scout's version of having several clip size penalty things. Spy is like those two. And the debuff players, I mean, that counts as burning, bleeding, slowed, stunned. So I most likely probably count covered in gas because they technically catch on fire. I'll figure out that small amount of detail, but yeah, this is our new version of the Enforcer. It's very much usable. So the Kritzkrieg. So over time, I can understand the changes like increasing the initial overcharge rate. Then they added the self heals for 11 HP. And then obviously the last version is the whole match speed thing that they moved from the quick fix to all metaguns. But it needs something because it's like the Kritzkrieg is like the damage metagun. And I had this thought, and a lot of my staff members enjoyed this idea. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to include mini crits with it. So you basically get crits and mini crits for 8 seconds. So like, what's the point of that? Because when you get crit boosted by the Kritzkrieg, debuffs don't get mini crit or full crit boosted, and sentry guns, if you crit boost an engineer, that's kind of what they don't do because debuffs and sentries can only get mini crit boosted. So think about that for 1 second. So now it actually would be scary. You could actually hold a point with an engineer medic getting Kritzkrieg because mini crit sentry, and it hurts. And two other changes we was gonna do was kind of buff the taunt thing because 11 health is nothing. So hopefully we plan on increasing it from 11 health to 25 health, but also that if you taunt with the weapon out, that if you're under a debuff, it would remove it. And the last thing that we're going to be doing is that currently all metaguns except the Kritzkrieg, while you're under the effect, you cannot cap or you can't do the objective. Due to the changes, now this is going to fall under that category. But yeah, like this just needed just a little push, yeah, that'll work. The pain train. So this weapon's actually never been touched ever since it's been released. Pretty much 8 years ago. So pretty much we just want to spice things up. And what we're thinking is essentially, so now the effects are only while active, but now it's going to be more of an extreme version. So while the weapon's active, you get the capture rate. But the new thing we're going to be adding is the move speed is going to be increased by 15% as long as you're doing the objective. And we've also changed the 10% bullet damage to 15% overall damage vulnerability. Again, going from while on wearer to while active, it's again just a more extreme version. And just to remind, like I say, if you're pushing a cart, you move around the cart faster as long as you're actually touching it. If you're on the point, you can dodge and weave. If you're holding intelligence, you can move around faster. Like, it counts anytime you're doing the objective, you'll be getting a speed boost. And that's pretty much it. Just taking the more simple version and making a more extreme version to kind of spice things up. Last but not least, the Caber. That thing where it's like nothing compared to what it used to be. That stick that's like dynamite on top of it. Oh yeah, that weapon. So there's been 3 versions of this, and it's the third version is nothing compared to what the first version was basically. And to simple it down, over time they would they reduce the damage, explosion damage. They would decrease the base damage penalty and whatnot. So just to make sure, if you didn't know, the actual melee damage was actually 35. That's the reason why I put it as a minus 46%, because I got to compare it to normal melee. They did reduce it from 35, or they buffed it from 35 to 55 around this, eventually, after they nerfed the explosion damage. So kind of brought it back up, but it's just not the same as it was. So basically what we're thinking to do is, because one of my friends, that she only uses the Caber. That's her melee weapon. She doesn't do demo knives, just that's her melee she uses with demo. And that so what we thought about, she brought up, is the fact that they had to nerf it due to shields, because you can channel, because if you get a crit hit, even with the current version, if you get a crit hit, it still hurts, but it's the timing, you have to get perfect. So with that, this idea is like, what if you get an additional perk if you don't use your shield, because that you don't have a way to like perfectly get a random crit and like hit someone with it, which makes sense. So our idea is that when a shield is not equipped, you get 100% bonus melee damage bonus, and I'll get to that in a second. We also decided to re-bump up the explosion from 75 to 100 basically. The next change is that we're now adding a new system to basically let it refill. No longer it's a one-time use thing. Basically, we're still trying to figure out how exactly it's going to work, but in general, once exploded, the weapon can be refilled from ammo packs. Just keep that, just kind of keep it as is. Like, we haven't figured out exactly, because obviously, this update may not happen. So, we'll get into that detail later. No real difference. We did add that it also holsters slowly. We also reduced it down to 66. So, because it's similar to some sword changes. Just look on the spreadsheet or the image, you'll know what I'm talking about. Kept the slowing firing speed, but the main difference is that it now has a minus 70% base damage penalty. What that means is it brings it down to 20. So it's lower than it ever has been. But if you happen to shield bash with it, it's still good. It still does that high damage. But now it makes it where instead of 20, it would do 40 if you have no shield, and then 40 plus the 100, you could do up 140. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much in a nutshell. Make it rechargeable, bring up the explosion damage, but give it a benefit if you don't have a shield. So you have a way to at least do more impact damage instead of being able to crit boost it with a shield. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Anyway, so hopefully, like I say, I do want some. I guess this is the conclusion time. I do apologize. I tried to say all this stuff as fast as possible, but doing 10 subjects, it was going to take a while. So yeah, please comment below or in the video that followed this one or came with this one. I want some feedback. Like, I would love to support, but I can't, or F you. This is stupid. I'm not going to pay. What I want, any form of feedback, to be honest, like anything, positive, negative, suggestions for even the changes that I talked about here, anything, because this could be the last attempt. This is basically my last attempt to bring back our player base. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to be walking away, and it'll most likely be the end of custom weapons. An amazing game mode with really high potential. But we need a constant player base, So anyway, it's sad, but it will happen if I have to. So I hope you enjoy my rambling. This is legit rambling, and I will see you in the next video.